Just talk louder.
We good? Can you hear me? Come on, Mariani. I know I can use it, but I'm afraid some of the others won't be able to. First of all, I want to welcome you all to tonight's 2020-2021 Sports Hall of Fame induction. You cannot believe how exciting this is. And I say this every year, this is the best part of my job. I get to see some of these great graduates that have come through these halls and have performed on the athletic field. It's been my privilege to watch them play, some of them, and also get to hear about some stories from some of the older ones that I wasn't here for. It really is exciting that you guys that are being inducted get to come home just for a little bit. We really excited for you all, and you are all very deserving of tonight's honor. A couple of thank yous. First of all, Dr. Artie D-Dash is our principal. He started this year. Very excited that he's here, and everything seems to be going really well. Mr. Colin Cathy, he still supports this to no end, and I can't thank him enough. Joe Schrog and John Ostrich for keeping me in task and online. I can't do this without them. And then Mike Boyer, who, if there are any complaints about the program, direct them to Mike Boyer. But no, Mike continues to volunteer his services, spends hours trying to get all the pictures and all the information, and I really appreciate all that you do, Mike, for this program. Again, welcome to you all. Again, it's going to be fun. I am going to send out a little reminder. Please, 5 minutes per speech, or we'll be here all night. With that, I'm going to introduce our MC. Everybody knows who our MC is, and again, I'm so excited that he is here again with us, Mr. Joe Schrog.
Good thing the mic's not working. You won't pick up on my mistakes. Before we commence, I would like to express a special thanks to Dr. Artie D-Dash and Colin Cathy for providing administrative support for tonight's festivities. Also to Mike Boyer for providing us with a program, Jennifer Miller for video record of these proceedings, to Athletic Director Rich Mariani, who bears the workload for this production, to John Ostrich for his oversight of the selection committee, and for all the members of the selection committee. Would the members of the selection committee please stand and be recognized? Also, we have quite a few of the Hall of Fame members here. Would anyone who is a member of the Hall of Fame please stand? I would like to remind you that the homecoming parade will begin in the Topeka West East lot starting at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. Those inductees who can stay around for tomorrow night's game will be introduced at the halftime. Would you please meet at the north end of the West Straightaway about 4 minutes before the end of the first half to get organized. Also, weather permitting, the Topeka West Alumni Association and Foundation will be having a tailgate in the West lot prior to the game. Good evening to you all tonight, and welcome to the 23rd Annual Topeka West Sports Hall of Fame inductions. My name is Joe Schrog, and it is my distinct honor and pleasure to be your moderator for tonight's festivities. There's no place I would rather be than the Topeka West on Hall of Fame night. As usual, we have marvelous inductees to hear from and about, and I can't wait to get started. Our first inductee is in the coaching category. Sadly, Bill Allen, the recipient of this award, passed away on January 12th of this year from COVID-19. So because we could not hold this event last year, he was deprived of the chance to be recognized in person. Bill was a 3-sport coach at Topeka West: football, gymnastics, and track. He took over gymnastics coaching in 1972, and they took 5th place in the state that first year, the highest finish they had. And he will be introduced tonight by one of his gymnasts, Bob Cronkite.
Good evening. I'm Bob Cronkite. I'm kind of the co-pilot tonight. John McEnroe was to be here to do this presentation, is not available, once again due to COVID constraints. So I'll do the best I can filling in for a fine young man. Fall of 1967, one of the great privileges and inspirations in my life took place when I walked into a phys ed class, Chapter Junior High School. It was Coach Allen's PE class, and it was a remarkable class. His class, you always knew the structure it had. There were processes and procedures you needed to follow, you better follow. There was consistency in how everything was done, and very clearly defined expectations. And each class started with a 1-mile run every day, 1-mile run. Go outside, run the mile, come back in, do calisthenics, have a great activity, and then wind it up with a nice hot shower. That way, no other teachers had to deal with smelling PE students, in the next class period. Kind of consider it. Doesn't always happen nowadays. There were known consequences. You left the towel on the locker room floor the next day, you didn't run 1 mile, you ran 2. You leave 5, you run 5. So the consequences were they were known. And so the locker room was a pretty tidy kind of place after something like that. Anyway, let me move forward. Across 3 years of junior high, those consequences never changed. Those expectations never changed. To me, that was a sign of a good teacher. You knew exactly walking in the door what you needed to do to be successful, and he made sure that you were. Consistency and fairness, I'd say that was Coach Allen's brand. If you worked within those structures, you had a great time. Had a great time. If you crossed those structures, you met the Board of Education. The Board of Education was known as Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown, at one point, had 5 children in the end, known to leave a certain pattern of welts. You could always tell in the showers at the end of PE who had taken shots. You'd see 5, 10, maybe 2 shots, 5, 10, 15, they had 3 spots. You could always tell who had to have a swat on any given day. May of 1970, he decided he was going to retire, Charlie Brown, and he came to our class. It was his very last class of the day, and he said, anybody willing to take a swat can come up and sign the paddle. All but one person stood up and said, here we are, give it to us. And he did. He was not going to do anything halfway, ever, anything halfway. So we took the swats and all got a chance to sign the paddle. Got to remember, back in those days, it was those thin cotton gym shorts. All that stood between your backside and Charlie Brown was about 2 paper stick worth of cotton. That showed the kind of respect we had. We're willing to take that kind of shot because he was going to retire Charlie. Anyway. Sounds kind of like boot camp, 12 to 14-year-olds. It was, absolutely it was. And it was great. It was absolutely great. Anybody that ever shook hands with Coach Allen knew what it was to shake hands. That there were expectations. You knew there was going to be a firm grip. And you knew you better have some eye contact. And a handshake was not over until Coach Allen let go. And sometimes it was longer than you really wanted it to be. But he taught one of those life lessons during that. Just how when you greet somebody, it's not some one fish kind of thing you did. Moving on to high school, we had him for 3 years of junior high, and then it took him 1 year longer than the rest of us to graduate. He came up a year after us. We were juniors, and at that time we had a gymnastics coach. But the following year, when we were seniors, our coach wasn't available, and Coach Allen came in and took over a team that I think probably nobody really wanted to. Not that they were outrageous or rowdy people, but nobody knew the sport. Nobody wanted to coach the sport. And so, not being somebody that was going to do something halfway, he took the job and immediately started to study. Went over to KU, talked with the KU's head coach about what to do. But what we found out was under his guidance, our team placed the highest in Topeka West history. And subsequent teams went on to have the same kind of success or even greater success in some years. And our team, what we lacked in athletic ability, we made up for in camaraderie. And when you take a look at who's there, I mean, we're talking about, there's 3 doctors that were on that team. There's a nurse, there's a financial IT specialist, there's a zoo director, an independent businessman, an engineer, a school superintendent, and a lowly teacher. As a teacher. But it was, so you see what he had to deal with. So, you know, he did the best he could with what he had to deal with. And quite frankly, it's amazing we could find our way to the meetings when you think about that group. As important as athletes were to coach, family was his first priority. Another one of his life lessons that he taught through example. 2 years after we graduated, at the state meet, it was an important team. He had a good team that year, very good team that year. But it was also the day that he was to fly to Oregon to pick up Mark. So that's where he was. Like I say, life lessons taught through example. Once Mark and Missy both joined the family, it was all complete. It was all under the guiding light of James, his wife. Anytime that our paths crossed thereafter, he always was just so proud to tell me the accomplishments of his kids. And there were many. I mean, there were many. When you talk about coaches, there's, you know, good coaches have impact on competitions. And good coaches have impact on athletes. Great coaches have impact on lives. Coach Allen impacted my life. He inspired me to become an educator. One of the great privileges of my life was to later become a teacher for his kids. And they were brilliant. Both of them, brilliant kids. So much fun. So in some way, I tried to repay, some small way, tried to repay the lessons that he'd given to me. I look back, and you know, I took my SWAT that day back in 1970, and I signed this paddle. By the way, this is a deep paddle. It's not a replica. It's not a mock-up. This is the real deal. Remember it. But I took my SWAT and I signed it back. You know, the welts, they faded away. But those lessons about teaching and about family and about life, they remain. So it's with great reverence and respect that I, along with my team, and many others, present Coach Heflin for induction into the Topeka West High School Sports Hall of Fame.
I'm very short, so I don't know if this will work or not. Thank you so much, Mom, for these nice words. And we thank the school.
Ignore me.
Thank you. Now I can join the Right. Well, we would like to thank everyone that had anything to do with this selection for recognizing Bill for his years of coaching at Topeka West. He thoroughly enjoyed it all. He truly enjoyed each year, and he enjoyed each team he coached. He always gave full credit to the athletes for all of their successes. He said many times it was his privilege to be their coach. Bill passed away, as you heard, in January from COVID. And I know he would love to have been here tonight, but certainly, you know, we're standing in for him. So our daughter Melissa and I are pleased to accept this honor on his behalf. Our son Mark is not able to be here, but he also wants to send his thanks to everyone who had anything to do with this wonderful occasion. And Joe Schwab was a very special friend of Bill. Thank you, Joe. So our family appreciates all of your thoughtfulness for what you have done for him tonight. Thank you.
this step. Look, a little bigger. I guess I won't. Bill was a tremendous pole vault coach. Gymnastics and pole vaulting had a lot in common. Same kind of kids did it. And what made him great was that he too came to pole vaulting without any experience as a pole vault coach. He learned it, he picked it up, he studied, he followed pole vault coaches around, he picked their brain, and he became a very good coach. But the thing that set him apart and it made him really successful is that he knew how to deal with kids who had just had some failure. When a pole vaulter would crash and burn, which they often did, he didn't let them feel sorry for themselves. He said, get back on the runway and do it again before they had time to be afraid. And it's like the horse bucks you off, get back on. And that was his philosophy, and he made it work. Our next inductee is in the category of special awards. This award is presented to an individual who has made significant contributions to Topeka West sports, even though he or she was not a coach or an athlete at Topeka West. During his tenure at Topeka West as assistant principal, Roe Mitchell was always very supportive of not just athletic activities, but all activities. He was very good about that. You'd see him in everything. He was a driving force in getting lights for the on-campus soccer field. And he will be introduced by another Topeka West Hall of Famer, Randall Walker, who has been recognized for this same award.
What do you think? Do I need this? Don't start the clock yet, Mariana. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it is this evening, to be able to help recognize and applaud those being inducted to the Topeka West Hall of Fame. I'll speak briefly to introduce Roe Mitchell, whom I have known since 1969. That's a while ago. When we both worked together at Jardine Junior High School, which, by the way, was a school built for 750 and at the time had 934 little cherubs there. It was a great place to work. Rome and his wife, Jeannie, are parents of 3 girls who are all Topeka West alums. All the women in that house are all talented, strong, and independent. So one time when we were working, Rome and I were working on a project, I asked him, how do you ever get to have a say in how things go at a house? And he just looked at me and smiled and said, sometimes we don't vote. Laughs and applause are okay, boos and hisses aren't. To me, that describes one of the gifts he had as an administrator and a father. Now, getting agreement is always nice, but sometimes you just have to make a decision. And his gift was knowing how and when to do that. And speaking of gifts, while we both were at Jardine early in our careers, we had a gift in that we were fortunate to experience the mentorship, leadership, and friendship shown by Principal Connie Skinner. And we're very pleased that that was able to continue when we both were able to work with him again at Topeka West. Rome was here a long time, and he was in the associate's office, and I followed him into that office. And I can say with the certainty of someone who followed him in that job, that when he moved to, by the way, to Topeka Public Schools Personnel Office in 84, he was both easy and difficult to follow into a job. It was easy to follow him because he was extremely well organized. And he provided an excellent outline of and a calendar noting his responsibilities. He also took time to provide orientation to ensure a smooth transition. Sounds nice, doesn't it? More ought to practice that. He was difficult to follow because he was such a talented, experienced, and respected administrator who set a high bar of expectations for him and everyone that he worked with. To use an athletic comparison, which seems appropriate tonight, some used to say that it was often easier to follow an 0-10 coach than a 10-0 coach. Well, Rome was definitely a 10-0. We had a superintendent once from Georgia that said that the definition of a high school principal is a former football coach with 2 years in a row of losses. So we set the bar higher here in Kansas than Georgia. So Rome was one of those 10-0 people. Through his 11 years at West, Rome willingly attended countless games and matches, and he still does. He's even been to the Frank Walton Golf Tournament Extravaganza at Topeka West Reunion and Fundraiser, which is fun. If you haven't been there, you need to go, and you'll see lots of people. He continues to donate to the Topeka West Foundation for the improvement of athletic facilities and equipment. Now, already recognition of his total body of work as an administrator here has already earned him the Owen Henson Distinguished Staff Award, and a significant part of that work demonstrated by his involvement in support of the sports programs, and that makes this induction tonight certainly well earned. And he'll cover that topic more in detail. In conclusion, I heard Rome once say it wasn't hard for him to come to work at West every day. There were a lot of us here who felt that way about our jobs too, primarily because of his daily contributions to all aspects of the programs that helped make West best. Thank you, Rome. Thank you all. 4 minutes, Brian.
Well, Corey's in here too, so.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Randall, you know, if you get tired being a gentleman farmer, you might want to go into public relations. Thanks for your kind remarks, incidentally. I came to West in 1973 after having been at Catholic Junior High for 8 years, where I worked with Bill Allen, and then went to Jardine for 4 years, where I was assistant principal, and worked with Randall at Jardine before we worked together here. So, a little bit of my history. When I talked to Dr. Henson about applying for a job here, he told me that what I would be doing was to be the assistant principal of C Building, or Little School C as we called it in those days, and that I'd teach one class of language arts. And finally, he grinned at this. He said, you'll be athletic director for the girls. And I said, okay. Is Smith still here? Gene Smith. And he said, yes, he's in charge of the boys' athletic program. So I'd known him for some time. I knew he and I could work well together, and we did. And I learned some things about the athletic programs at Topeka West, and enjoyed the first year here, working primarily with girls' sports. And that was new, but it was fun. My second year, I was promoted to associate principal, so I was down here in the A office, and I was still somewhat involved with the athletic program, but in different ways. And at that time, we had a new principal. Jack Dieter had been moved out here from Topeka High School. So there were 3 of us that were new to the job. Jack Dieter as principal, I was associate, and we were coming up with a new athletic director. That's going to be Joe Schrar. We learned later on, and I'll tell you about that. So we had to do quite a bit of discussions about how to do things and who would do them and when you would do them, and that was interesting. particularly when you're new on the job and learning as you go. But getting back to determining who our athletic director would be, we discussed that, and I said, it has to be one person. We don't need two people doing the athletic directorship. It would work better if there was one person who knew what he was doing and could handle that job. And I said, I can give you an estimate and a guess as to who would be the best one around. And of course, Jack wasn't familiar with these people out here, so he said, well, who would that be? So I recommended Joe Scrogg. We talked to Joe, and luckily, he took the job. And for the next month or so, Jack and I congratulated ourselves and each other on that wise decision that we made about the new athletic director. From that point on, the three of us joined in on discussions and arguments and meetings concerning things relating to the school and the school's athletic program. And one of the big issues at that time was we think we should get out of the league that we're currently in, which was with 5 schools in Kansas City who are the Shawnee Mission schools, Lawrence, and Topeka High. And our coaches wanted to get out of that league. Many of our players wanted to get out of that league, and so we discussed that. We decided that would be a good move for the school if we could do that. We talked to the folks down in the central office, and they were opposed to that idea. They didn't like it at all. We came back and we talked some more about it, and we said, what's the best thing for this school? And we agreed we need to get out of that league and come up with something better that our kids could excel in. So we decided that the thing to do was to go ahead and get out and beg for forgiveness rather than asking for permission. And it worked. We were happy. But where that put us was we had no schedule to speak of, just partial schedules, since we weren't in the league anymore. And a lot fell on Joe to work up games with opponents maybe that we'd never had before. But it did work out, and then shortly we started working toward involvement with the schools who are in the I-70 league. Tucson, Manhattan, Junction City, Topeka High, Emporia, Hayden, and West. And I would say that Connie, Skinner, and Joe did the bulk of the negotiating and work from our standpoint, and it took about 2 years to get that developed before it was up and running. And it turned out to be a good move on our part to do that. Another factor, I guess you'd say, or part of my job was dealing with budget issues in connection with the sports teams. And that was enjoyable. It was sometimes like having to stretch money farther than it would really stretch, but it was interesting and certainly worthwhile. But I helped with the development of budgets for the individual sports, for uniforms and equipment and meals and transportation and then facilities. And that was a big issue because in this building, like most, there were always things that needed to be taken care of, improved, replaced, or whatever. So that was always an issue, and we decided that many things couldn't be fixed, they just need to be replaced. And some of the things that we worked on that I think made a real improvement in this building was we put in a new PA system in the gym, which it was badly needed. We put up a second scoreboard in the gym because our gym originally, you were at a disadvantage if you were going away from the only scoreboard we had. But we put up one at each end. We put in some new bleachers. We put in floor plates for the volleyball standards. And I'd have to pat the young lady who was our coach straight out of college and was appalled at the standards that we had that were made out of old tires and wheels. So Kathy Kearns convinced us that we need to replace that, and we did. And the funny thing about it, we got a lot of visitors from other schools coming to look at that because we were the only one around that had that kind of a volleyball program. So that was a good improvement. We also expanded our storage for football and track equipment on the outside, and we built a concession stand. And then the last thing, and Joe, I think, mentioned that, we had a group of male fathers, primarily, who were willing to put in a lot of work to build our soccer field out here. And one of them was a lineman, and he helped put the poles up and put the lights on them, and we saved the district a lot of money on that deal. The other issue that I guess I would mention at this time is what was occurring along about the early 80s. And this was at a time when we decided that we needed to add women's softball, men's baseball, and then soccer for both boys and girls. And everybody thought that was a good idea. A lot of kids were interested. The issue was that playing fields were pretty scarce in this town for softball and baseball. And all schools were looking to utilize them for the first time. Most of them were city fields, which weren't in very good shape. So that was a kind of a time of turmoil when facilities weren't the best, and they were being stretched among many schools. And I have to say that Joe helped us through that stretch of time when everything was new and different. And the other factor in this part of the career was there weren't very many people around who knew anything about soccer. So finding a soccer coach was not easy at this point. The last thing I would say that I relate to this job and to athletics was what I think might be the most important part was having the opportunity to interview prospective athletes, or not athletes, applicants for teaching and coaching positions. And typically, Connie Skinner and Joe and I would do the interviews for those jobs. And we enjoyed it. We, I think, did a good job of it. And I'd like to mention some names of people that we employed during the time that I was at Topeka West. Here are a list of those that I could recall. Women's basketball coach, Charlie Myers and Mike Goring. Boys basketball coach, John Ostrich. Frank Walton, football. Gymnastics, Cindy Boyles. Tennis, Corey Wilson. Volleyball, Kathy Kearns. Girls track, Bob James. Wrestling, Mike Jameson, who's no longer around here. Golf, Jack Wiley and Frank Walton. Now you stop and think about that group of men and women and the job that they have done over the years and the success they had. There would be a lot of schools that would like to have that group of individuals be their coaches. So I would simply say to you coaches who are here and those who aren't but have worked for West, I salute you and I appreciate you for your loyalty. Finally, I want to say that there's always been a lot of purple at our house. I have 3 daughters. All 3 went to Topeka West, graduated here. 2 of them were cheerleaders for 3 years. 1 of them was a girl teamer for 3 years. And all of them loved going to school here. And it was my pleasure to see them be successful here and to have a good education and turn out as well as they have. I would also say that another portion of my family, my wife, also taught at Topeka West. And she's still a purple Charger also, I would say. So finally, I want to say thank you to the committee that recommended me for this recognition. And thanks to Randall for the introduction. And appreciate being the opportunity to be here.
Steps get a little tougher for us old guys. It's a good thing that Rome was a patient man, because that year he was women's athletic director. I was the first girls basketball coach at Topeka West, the job which I enjoyed and hated for 2 years. The first year we were 0-4 and hammered each time. And if he had not been a patient, long-suffering man, I'd have probably been out of the job, might not be here today. We ended up 7-6, it turned out all right. And he said also that everybody thought it was a good idea to bring in baseball and soccer. Well, the track coach, I wasn't so sure about that. Lost a lot of athletes, but in my heart, I knew it was the right thing to do, and was supportive of that as an athletic director and as a person who knows that different people need different opportunities, and soccer and baseball were opportunities that many people deserve to have. So that was good. Our next inductee is 1994 graduate Misty Carol Lingerfeld. Misty ran cross country, and she was good at it, but her greatest achievements were on the basketball court, both at Topeka West and at Washburn. Following in the footsteps of her parents, Dennis and Betty Carroll, she became a highly successful educator, and you can read about those accomplishments in your program. She will be introduced by brothers Bo and Errol Carroll.
Stand on the box. No. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Bo. This is my brother Errol. We do exist. It's not a myth. We are Bo and Errol. We're going to kind of tag team this a little bit. We're going to go back and forth. A couple stories that we have, and then we're going to have Misty come up. It started October 4th, 1975, when my sister was born. Before Lion King even came out, we weren't allowed to go into the hospital. So my mom had Misty, and how we first met her is they hung her out of a window so Errol and I could see her. So she was kind of christened at that time for some greatness, and we kind of edged her along a little bit as this went on. When she was little, she really wanted to hang out with Errol and I a lot. So we would climb up in the bunk beds, and so she couldn't get up there. Well, she paid us back because she used to bite off the heads of our Star Wars people. So I thank her, because I'd probably be a millionaire if we would have kept all the Star Wars on eBay now. But nobody wants a headless Han Solo. So it doesn't work very well. But so she, as we went on, we used to play this game called Scotty, where she was actually a boy, and because she wanted to be like Errol and I, and we would come and play these games and do stuff. So we used to do all kinds of things, and then I'm going to flow into this. I'll let Errol take over this next little portion. So
we do come from a pretty competitive family, obviously through sports. And Misty, we always actually played football, having our father as a football coach. And Misty wanted to play too, so she must have been, I don't know, kindergarten. We were playing neighborhood football. She wanted to join in. So we lived in Tennessee at the time, and we decided, we're going to bring Misty on our team, which kind of pissed off all the other dudes in the neighborhoods, because we'd run a power sweep play where Bo would just kind of take them out, and then Misty would go around and score a touchdown. And she had a little touchdown dance one time, maybe a little too flashy, and one of our other friends, Joey Waller, decided to hit her late and broke her arm. Well, Joey took off. Well, we also knew where Joey hid his house key, so Joey wasn't seen for a little while in the neighborhood after that. then flowing into that competition, you know, Miss T went to Hoy Hoy Mighty Troy, Topeka High to begin with before she came to West. And so when she came to West, it was kind of a big deal for us at Topeka High, and we would cheer for Misty even though she wore the purple, and that would make some of our classmates upset, but hey, it's our little sister. And one thing we always had at Washburn in the old Jim Whiting, we would have Sunday basketball games, and they would get real competitive. And that's when I knew Misty was a super competitor, because man, she would take you out if you had an open layup, and yeah, it was fun though.
So speaking of the Whiting, it was always the same teams. It was myself, Misty, my dad, and Mom against Arrow, and then whoever the three people that came to play at Whiting. So, I mean, we had people like Floyd Johnson, Michael Blackwell. We had all kinds of individuals that would come and play that were actually good basketball players, and they would understand what battle ball turned into, because it was, you couldn't foul out. So, yeah, so Misty was very competitive. Misty, her freshman year, was actually at Topeka High School. She started varsity as a freshman at Topeka High due to some things that happened. She moved over here, and it was probably one of the best things for her to do, where she then went on and was very competitive and did some great things over here. Her junior year, she tore her ACL, and again, this is probably some of the testament to her, how hard she worked to get back. Her senior year, obviously, was the milestone of what they did. They went 25-0, undefeated state champions, 6A state champions. It was a wonderful experience watching her play, coming back, and all the work that she did to be able to get to the opportunity to win that state championship. I'd like to thank Coach Goring. I know Coach Goring's here. Coach Goring was a phenomenal individual for my sister. And then Coach Murray is rest in peace. Coach Murray was another influence on Misty. He had a saying that he used to tell her that we didn't know what it meant at first. And he would tell her that, hey, you got that BGD. You got that BGD. And so everybody's like, BGD? What's Coach Murray talking about? So finally he told Misty, look, Misty, you play black girl defense. I'm telling you. So the tenacity that she had is someone came from, again, my mom was a competitor. They didn't have high school sports when she was growing up until basketball. She still holds the Iowa State record for most consecutive free throws made in competition. My pops, he was a All-American football player. Had the opportunity to go play with the San Diego Chargers, blew out his knee, and then obviously came into education. And my mom's also in education, so we're all education people. Speaking of West, last thing I want to say about them, I'd like to thank Wendy Farthing's family. Back then, the state of Kansas actually harassed my sister for transferring. It's not like nowadays, like, hey, you got an address, come on over, you're eligible, right? It doesn't work like that back then. Misty had to go stay with the Farthings her freshman, sophomore, and junior year. She would go there on Sunday nights, and then she could come home on Friday. So she spent the night Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights at the Farthings, so that she could attend Topeka West High School until her senior year. She wanted to be here, she wanted to be successful, and again, part of the drive for her to do that, to step away from her family at a young age, so that she could be a part of a thing that was very exciting. While she was in school, Errol and I were not really easy on her. When guys would come up to try to date her, you know, we might have a whole posse sitting on the front porch and kind of waiting on him, seeing if he would actually come out of the car to come up to the porch to introduce himself. That was kind of nerve-wracking for a couple cats. We used to tell them, hey, listen, we got access to a backhoe and as much concrete as we need. Don't ever find you again. So I say the same thing with my Marge friends now. She did, however, find a wonderful individual in Clint. He's a great man, and we appreciate everything, taking care of our little sister. So he's a phenomenal individual, so we appreciate that. That kind of moved into, she was given a full ride scholarship to Washburn University. She was a point guard at Washburn, and she had a tremendous opportunity there and played with some wonderful individuals. And then again, junior year, tore ACL. The portion that I remember is the words that came out of her mouth, because I you know, back when you were on scholarship, they let you do a little work and they paid you a little money, so I kept stats. So I kept some statistics for both the men's and women's basketball games. And I remember her saying, "Not again," right? So again, Misty worked and worked and worked to get her bottom back to where she needed to be to finish up her senior year, become all MIAA, and have an opportunity to run at the national championship. Portion of it is, I had the opportunity actually to coach Misty when I was in college. We coached with Mark Brown. We had a team that actually won the AAU championship in Kansas and got to compete in the AAU national championship, which we took second in the state of Florida. And it was kind of funny to see a whole bunch of farm girls and girls from Kansas that were beating these teams, people going to Tennessee and Louisiana Tech and Texas Tech and all these powers at the time, and because they played defense and they had tenacity. And I'd like to thank Coach Brown. I know he's not here as well. So I'll pass the next one off to my brother.
So again, talk a little bit about family. Our grandparents, they moved down here when we got to high school, and they basically attended all of our athletic events. My grandpa, God bless him, tomorrow will be his, would have been his birthday, taught my sister how to drive. Something he had to. And, but they came to every game, and that just went to show how our family has always been committed to one another and had great love and respect for one another despite the hard fouls that might have taken place in pickup games.
So obviously when she went and finished up, she's kind of the brains of the operation. She ended up being summa cum laude from Washburn University. She's the one that took the honors and AP classes. I just took the classes that I could get through and pick the good ones, and you know, had to maintain the 4.0 average. So you took those basic classes. But I will say she has been a teacher. She's been a mentor. She is currently a principal at a high school. She's actually a two-time Topeka West Hall of Fame. She was put in the Hall of Fame with that 1994 class that went undefeated. So she's a two-time. For her whole life, she was always bow and arrow sister. We usually actually make some money because people wouldn't believe that was our name. And then they were always, "Oh, you got a sister? Oh yeah, her name's Target." And sister name's Target. So then they found out it wasn't. Her actual name was Misty. So the kind of running joke is bow shot arrow on a misty day. So I used to remember our names. But I just want to say my biggest thrill of her was we used to go to Washburn all the time. We had a key. Pops was football coach at Washburn. We used to go over there countless. We lived right across the street, right over on Lane. We would go across every day and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And we used to do the three-point competition where you shoot 2 from the corner, 2 from the wing, 2 from the top of the key, 2 from the other wing, 2 from the corner. So the thing that we used to do is the second shot from the corner was just like a strike ball in the three-point contest. It was the money ball. So forever that I can always remember, I might lose you. I love you for everything you do, and just remember, money shot from the quarter, baby. Love y'all. Thank you.
Doing good until that last bit goes, so I blame you. My husband knows that when I get emotional, I fan myself, so I'll take a moment. Mr. Marioni, don't start the clock. Okay. All right. First, I would like to say thank you to Topeka West High School, the administration. Coach Walton, most people don't know, but I proctored for Coach Walton, and when I had transferred over, my brothers were playing at Topeka High. And Coach Walton was one of the first people on campus to really welcome me which is interesting because my brothers are playing on the Topeka High team, right? And so it shows the type of person that Coach Bolton was. I would like to say thank you to Lori Brewer. This might be a long 5 minutes. I do. I love my brother. I would like to say thank you to Lori Brewer. She was my social studies teacher at Joyner Middle School, and I would say I passioned myself to be a teacher just like her. If anybody has ever been in her class, that's a class that you want to be in. I would like to say thank you to Miss Waldo. She always cheered on the 1994 championship team at all the games, always giving us girls pep talks and good looks, and I appreciate her being here today. I want to say the beauty of athletics is the lessons we learn that we take into our adult lives. Right? That's the nice thing about high school sports. You're not a kid forever, and you grow up, and you think, I learned that lesson because of that person. And to all the coaches that are here today, whether I had you or not, there's a player somewhere that still says your name. That says your name because of that lesson you taught them. So because I like a little participation as an educator, I would love for somebody in the audience to yell out a life lesson that potentially a coach taught them. I would love for 2 people.
Resiliency.
Resiliency, I love it. One more.
Dedication.
What was that, Mama?
Dedication.
Dedication. Perfect. So one of my life lessons that I have is preparation, right? And anything about Coach Goring and Coach Goring's teams, people knew that we had real practice. And practice, we would put on our pennies and we would tear it up. At that time in the 90s, we fronted the post, which you didn't see a lot of high school girls teams did. But Coach Goring was very, probably ahead of his time in a way. And we fronted the post and there was that weak side help. And we would practice it and practice it. And if you asked anyone from that 94 team, what's one thing you remember about a Coach Goring practice, it was the shell drill. We loved the shell drill. Now most high school teams like to shoot. But if you asked us girls, we would have chosen the shell drill any day, Coach. And that's because of you and your dedication to defense. I would also like to say someone who taught me a lot about preparation is my father. He had all kinds of crazy ideas, and we kids did them. My favorite is he tied a rope to a basketball, and we would work on our vertical jump. I say that, and my husband is probably laughing through his mask because my vertical jump is maybe this much. So Daddy, I take that because if it wasn't for you, it'd probably been this much. But we did. My dad believes in preparation. The other thing that I love that little people probably don't know because I wasn't very good at it, but I wanted to throw the shot put. And when I told my Jardine track coach, he said, Nancy, I don't know if you got the shot put look. And I said, yeah, my brother both throws the shot put. I'm going to throw the shot put. So I go home and I tell my dad, I want to throw the shot put. And my dad said, well, then you're going to have to win. I said, okay. Every night when he would come home from work, and these are long days as a football coach, he would go out and we'd throw the shot. Right? Brought a shot put home for me or wherever he got it, who knows. He would come home and we would practice the shot put. And I remember one time, the best throw I ever had, I hit the limb of our tree. And my dad looked at me and he said, we're going to win. And I once said in my seventh grade year, they called me a little skinny girl, right? Because I should not have been throwing the shot. I think I ran the 100 and threw the shot put. But that's a testament to my dad because we prepared every day by throwing the shot, hundreds of times probably. The other thing that my dad was great at for preparation was positive self-talk. My dad wrote me notes all through every game I ever had in my high school and college career. I had a note from my dad. And he fooled me because I never knew who were writing these notes. I should have known it was him. I know how bad his handwriting is. But he would say it was other people, and I was like, well, who, Daddy? Like, what are we talking about? I have some of those notes saved today, and everyone, right, whether you're a teenager or adult, that positive self-talk is a huge part of preparation. And my dad is one great motivator, right? And I appreciate that. My second lesson is selflessness. People say I'm a great teammate, but what does that mean, right, when someone says that? And for me in that 1994 state team, one thing Coach Goring could do that probably few could, he created a community. we talk about community and relationships today in education, but back in the 90s, people didn't talk about community, and Coach could just do it. You know, we were a team of gals, and everybody had their role. And different roles would change for different games. And I remember in the state tournament, and one thing that Coach taught me that I try to use as an assistant principal today is when we played Olathe South, they had a big-time center who averaged 28 points a game, and Maggie Davis held her to 8. And at the end of that game, Coach Goring looked at Maggie and he said, Maggie, you scored 20 points this game. And it stuck with me. You know, here I am today, 45 years old, and I can remember that, Coach, thank you. Because it talks about the importance of a role and importance of being selfless. And we would have not won the state tournament without Maggie Davis. And anybody knows anything about basketball knows that. You know, I appreciate Coach giving me my role as a point guard. I probably was a little motivator, a little feisty, and a little all-coach. And he let me run it on the floor. But, you know, he really did. And I appreciate him believing in me and that role. When I think about selfless, I have to talk about my mother. She's the most selfless individual I've ever met. When we were in 3rd grade, after church, my mother used to invite a homeless woman over to her house for Sunday dinner. And my little 3rd grade self would say, Mom, she stinks. Why is she here? Right? Because I'm a kid. That's what kids say. She smells. Why is she here? We don't even know this person. She's not related to us. And my mom, in all her classiness, said, we have and she does not, which means we must give. And it's a lesson that I hold here today, Mommy. My mom also randomly gives food to the firefighters. They love Betty Carroll, let me tell you. Okay, she'll call them up. Anybody there? I'll make you something. What do you want, pie? Cinnamon rolls? Brownies? You know, and that's just the type of person my mother is. She'll go and make copies for teachers at Whitson. She ironed my dress today. Okay, she ironed my husband's shirt today. And I said, Mom, let me iron it. Not at my mom's house. Okay, if any of you ever come to my mom's house, you're not probably going to be doing a lot because she loves to do for others. And that's what makes a good teammate, right? Someone who loves doing for others. My 3rd one, and somebody in the back yelled resiliency, and I love it, whoever yelled it back there. My 3rd life lesson is resiliency. As my brother said, I've torn my ACLs. It's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be. Anybody who has a torn ACL, we folks in that camp, I'll look at somebody and say, oh, you tore your ACL. We kind of know something, because that's one hard surgery to get over. I will say my brothers taught me to be tough in a good way, right? I had to keep up with them on my bike, and if you ask my husband, I'm not a very good bike rider, and I am not, thank you. So I had to keep up with my brothers. I remember we would play fort in the Georgia woods, had to keep up, right? Where's Misty? You better be right there, because my dad said anything happened to me, those guys knew. Where's the paddle? Yes, my dad maybe didn't have Charlie Brown, but my dad had something, that was his belt, right? So he's telling my brothers, anything happens to Misty, you're in trouble. So we're in these forests, where's Misty at? And I appreciate that. Arrow taught me to have quick comebacks. He's one of the most witty people I've ever met, and my brother Arrow taught me not to back down, to chase any dream. My brother, as he said, my brother Bo and I would shoot for hours. But the thing about my brother Bo is he's a big guy, but he'd save his last French fry for me. Every time. The last fry always went to Misty. I still remember. Having my brothers at my games is something I would love to go back to for one night to see them in the stands. I went by Lou in high school because there was another Misty on the team, and my dad and my family called me Lou. So anybody who knows me from Topeka West, Angie, Wendy, all of my teammates, I went by Lou, right? And I could hear them in the stands yelling Lou, and just looking up and seeing my brothers there helped me on those resilient games. For us, our 94 state championship team, we played Shawnee Heights. We were 12-0, and they were 0-12. And we were down by 23, I believe, at half, right? And every good team has that time. Every effective person as an adult has that time when you're down by 23. And I remember in the locker room, Coach said, we're going to press them till they can't think. Yeah. And Murray said, one basket at a time. That's how you come back, one basket at a time. And that's how we adults come back, right? One basket at a time. And we did press them. And Coach, we had 3 presses. We had a full court press, we had a 3/4 court press, and we had a half court trap. And we probably threw all 3 at them. And we ended up winning on a last-second shot by Angie Bonner, hit a 3-pointer. The very next game, you want to talk about resiliency, Junction City came in. If anybody knows about Junction City in the 90s was a gritty team. You play Junction City, you're going to get a lot of elbows, and you're going to get a lot of undercuts, so you better be ready. And we take Junction City down to the very last second. Coach does not call a timeout. He believed in us. And I went down and I hit a jumper and we won with 2 seconds left on the clock. Back-to-back games. That state team was resilient. My last thing I would like to say is fun. Anybody who's successful knows how to have a good time. Because when you're running wind sprints and you look at your best friend and you can still smile, that's the beauty of being on a team. When you're tired and you don't want to do it and you look at your best friend and they still have a smile and you still have a twinkle, that fun is a factor that makes anyone successful, or that anybody can remember as a life lesson from sports. And you probably think, if I can hold that moment as an adult, and it's hard, right? It's hard to hold on to those moments. I remember Coach Goring biting his medal and dancing in the middle of the court. And that memory is still there, Coach. I can see it like it's yesterday. And, you know, for myself as an adult, the number one thing with my husband and I is we have fun. He's witty. I can never get one over on him. I try, but then I start using his jokes against him, and it's not quite as good. But I think as an adult, in my adult life, finding those ways to have fun. As I close out, I would like to say for us Carols, I miss my family daily. And one thing about us Carols is we roll deep, baby. We roll deep. From my grandparents, to my brothers, and to my parents now going to Bo and Emily's daughter's games. My father is my hero. And my mother is my role model. And there are reasons that we are all civil servants. My brother and I are in education, and my brother Arrow is a social worker who now works as a parole officer. And there's a reason why we take care of other people. That's because my parents took care of us. I would like to say I'm really thankful for my husband, and I know my mom will yell out an amen because Clint Lingerfeld takes care of me. Thank you, Mommy. I would like to say thank you to Coach and Patty. We were your kids. Anybody who played for Coach Goring, we were his kids. And last but not least, I would like to say thank you to anyone who believes in women athletics. We girls deserve a right to play. And we want to play. And so thank you for everyone in this room who has supported a female athlete. And thank you again to Topeka West. I appreciate it.
When Bo and Arrow said that Misty was a fierce competitor, they weren't kidding. There was a huge difference between her normal everyday demeanor and her game face. When she had a game face on, I'd take her against anybody. Our next inductee is 1982 graduate, Tony Berry. Tony is Angie Berry's brother. Angie was inducted in 1999, and sadly she passed away this last year, Cody. And there will be a race in her honor on June 4th, where the proceeds of which will go to help provide scholarships and to further other people's career. Wonderful situation, and you'll be able to find out more about that as time goes on. Tony was a very talented athlete who garnered all I-70 league status in both football and basketball. He will be introduced by another Hall of Famer, Chuck Sander.
I gotta go with the bow and arrow. Try to do my best. Getting invited to do, or get asked to do one of these things, and you start to think about all the history and all the time you spent with somebody. I realized Tony and I have known each other 50 years. I moved to McCarter in the fall of 1971, and Tony was my second grade class. You know, at the very beginning, we weren't very super close friends, but as we started to play sports together, we ended up on a bunch of the same teams and became great friends. He was the best man at my wedding, and I was in his. Again, thinking about all the stories and all the things, Tony and I have a lot of stories and a lot of history, and played a lot of sports together, but a lot of our stories are appropriate for here, so I'll probably pass it. The Berry family was awesome to grow up around. I loved hanging out at their house. I was over there sometimes more than I was at my own. They took me to my first K-State game. They took me on a trip to Lincoln, Nebraska. I don't know, Tony, if you remember that. We went to Lincoln to watch Angie run through the Thunderbolts. Guess they didn't mind having me around. Cody's dad, Don, is one of the funniest people I've ever met. He'd always crack a joke. He'd always have something funny to say. He'd always keep you a little off balance. I always felt comfortable around Don, except for one time we were downstairs. Tony had a pinball machine, and we were playing pinball downstairs, and I got a little upset. Turned around and smacked the wall and did it the driveway. So I didn't come around the Prairie House for a couple of months because I didn't want to run into Don. Cody's mom, Marge, she was like a second mom to me. Marge would have done anything for her kids and any of her kids' friends. She would do anything to help them out, and she did so many times. Marge is always a great person and was always at all of our things, all of our sports. You'd see Marge there. Angie was like a little sister. She was always busy, on the go, track and riding horses. But she was sweet and kind, and she's going to be missed by all of us. Sports for Tony. When I think about Tony, I always think about basketball first. Tony loved basketball. That was all we did when we were kids. We play it every recess. We play sports on the weekend. We'd always be playing basketball. He'd always be off going to camp at KU. He always loved to play basketball. And as Coach Rock said, he was the first team All I-70 League, he was second team All City, and he played at Florida State. So he was a hell of a basketball player too. Football is obviously kind of my great love, and we loved playing together, and we had a great group. We were sophomores. Tony Berry was not a big kid. He wasn't even really on the depth chart for quarterbacks. To start of the season, we had Ward Sykes. All you guys know who Ward is and know how good Ward was. We had Steve DeSelm, who was good enough to be quarterback at any other school that didn't have Ward Sykes. We had Troy Dashner, who was another kid that could play quarterback. And definitely the plan for Tony when he was a freshman or a sophomore, because we weren't freshmen then, we were sophomores, we came from junior high, was learn the veer, get bigger, get stronger, get faster. And someday you'll get a play. Well, Fate had a little bit different plan. I think it was the second game of the season, right, Coach? We lose Sykes, we lose DeSelm, and we lose Dashner, all in the same game. Boom! Next man out, sophomore Tony Berry. TV stepped right in. I'm sure he was scared to death. But he played. And he did all right. He got through it. We toughed it out. And then we got down to playing the team from downtown. Did they leave? Yeah. No, we're still here. It's going to get worse. Had Markey and Carkey Alexander and had a couple other ballers on that team. And Tony was gutsy. Tony went out and played, but Tony went down in that game. And he's on the field, and he's laying there. And I can't remember if it was broken finger, broken hand, broken wrist, whatever Tony was down, and Coach goes out, and all the medical folks are out there. They're looking at him. Coach looked over and he said, "There's a lady standing there. Who is this lady? Who are you?" "Well, I'm his mother." Well, Marge had gotten her way down on the stands out of the field to check on Tony. And that tells you where, as I said, Marge was there all the time. Junior year, kind of rinse and repeat. Sykes went down. I think Dasher went down, and maybe Tony was second team. Tony got to play for a little bit. He got hurt. He got hurt that year also. But we did beat the team from downtown that year. So our senior year came around, and we had a team. We had the best running back in the city. We had a couple of decent offensive linemen. Had a defense that could play with anybody. And we had a quarterback who had grown up, was tough, tested, and ready to play smart. We started the season 4-0, and I think maybe we were actually ranked after those 4 games. And then anybody that's been to these ceremonies, we talk about it every time one of us gets put in. We had a fire. Locker room burned down. Week of the Manhattan game, we lose that one because we spent the whole week. We literally didn't practice equipment. We wore our equipment the first night, I think, at the game. We had to get equipment trucked in. It was insane. And should have been the first time Coach beat Manhattan, but it didn't happen. We lost. Next week, she go to Junction City and stepped into the twilight zone. I still don't understand that game. We let Manhattan beat us twice and we lost that one. So we lost 2 in a row now, going 4-2. But well, the coaches kept us in the game. One other person was keeping us in there, and that was Tony. Tony stayed positive, was upbeat, kept everybody's heads up. It's time for district. And guess who the first one on the district schedule was, bow and arrow? Yep, we played the team from downtown. 45-7, we win. So that was, we'll always remember that one. The next week, we played Lawrence. And Lawrence at that time, I don't think they had started their winning streak, but they were damn good. And we lost them 13-10, and that's when I guarantee you anybody that was on that team, coaches, players, anybody, when we get together, we talk about that, we talk about how we should have won. We lost 13-10. And we closed the year beating Highland Park 55-20. We finished 6-3, should have been 8-1. Tony was a second team All-City quarterback, second team I-70 league, second in the city in passing, which I didn't remember, but Coach helped me remember that, and 4th in total offense. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty sure one of his teammates may have been in the top, above him in the total offense. We had a good ball club. Kind of in closing, I wanted to say Tony was a natural leader. You hear about the glue guy. Tony was a glue guy, whether it was in basketball or football. When things got a little bleak in the middle of that season, Tony helped keep our heads up. He knew how to run the rear as well as anybody. Tony maximized his talent probably more than anybody on that team. He's never going to be the kid that wins 100 yards dash. He isn't the fastest kid. He wasn't going to throw the ball 60 yards on a dime. But if you need a guy, make a couple of free throws, ties the basketball game, or get 3 yards for a first down. TB's the guy. I'd like to present you Tony Berry.
Chuck, that'll bring it out of you. Chuck's right. When we started talking about this ceremony, we had known each other for over 50 years. So Chuck, thank you for all the memories and the time and coming up. That was very special. Just like you said, we were at each other's house. We daily, weekly, right over here from Arrowhead Road to Kent, 17th, 21st, and we had little kids in there you could shake a stick at. No offenses, you know, somehow or another we would hear mothers yell, "Time for dinner." That's the only reason we knew to come home. But to start off, first I just want to thank the committee for this great honor to be included in such a wonderful class and to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. It means the world to me, and I really want to say I really appreciate it. Also, would like to congratulate all the other inductees tonight. You all deserve all your recognition for your sacrifices, talents, and efforts. You're all very talented. Before we go on, I just want to take a quick moment, and this will be the most serious part of the conversation, and then we'll roll into some fun. I just want to remember some of the people that have gone before us. Shane Sterrett, Greg Coons, Ryan Richter, Kevin Cronister, Mark Winkenreuter, Brad Christine, Angie, Barry Red. Those were Chargers forever. I also want to take a moment to think about and a prayer for Joe Walton, Coach's brother, who we just lost recently, and who did attend some of our football games, as I recall. So now let's get down to the fun part of this. This is just like Chuck said. I was really late to making my decision to go out for this East West football. Thought about it, pondered about it. Like Chuck said, you know, I love basketball. I wanted to play basketball. Love it. The problem is I need school. I waited and I waited and I waited, and I finally contacted Coach Walton. I said, you know, I'd like to go out for football. Can I check out the equipment? You know what you get when you're the last guy to check out equipment? You don't get very nice stuff. You get pants that look like they have never been washed. You get a helmet that's face mask right close to you. You know, it was the best decision that I ever made. And Chuck is the one that worked on me and said, TV, you gotta go out. TV, you gotta go out. You gotta go out. So I did. And things were fun. We're just plowing along with JV football, get a little varsity time as a sophomore. If you get in on the kickoff and you don't get trucked and run over by a guy from Manhattan, things were great, you know? Life was good. And then it happened. I'm in class on a Monday, and I get this little pink slip. Tony Berry, Coach Walton would like to see you in his office. Holy mother. What did he figure out that I did over the weekend? What did I do over the weekend? Oh my God. And much like Chuck said, you know, you show up and he says, Tony, we got a problem. Sykes is hurt. His name's a little different. Mockerman's hurt. Gibbons is hurt. Dad's hurt. Well, hell, he's a meathead from Eskridge. And he's a defensive end. He's hurt. You're it. I'm like, I'm in for what? You're the quarterback this Friday. So as I walk back from his office to E-building, and I'm like going, I don't know if I'm excited or if I'm just terrified. But, and by the way, the reference to Eskridge, those who played football for Coach Walton know that anytime we did something bonehead or bad or something, I'm shipping you all off to Eskridge. And we're all like, where is it? Where is Eskridge? What is this Eskridge reference? What the heck? So, I mentioned the seriousness of some of the people that have gone before us before because those were upperclassmen. Greg Coons was a running back at the time, and as Chuck said, probably a little terrifying. Greg Coons at that time when I was a star, he was hitting the hole so fast that I could barely get down there to hand the ball off to him. But they could not have been more supportive, more caring, and never said a bad word. Never. So that was part of something special to be part of People's football. You were a family, and nobody, nobody said unkind words to you. You were always supportive of one another. And as Chuck said, we played that team from downtown. They were very athletic, and they had a great team that year. broke my arm. It was just a freak deal, you know, but it absolutely became one of the best things for me as an athlete, not only from basketball, but from playing and running the veer. Because it forced me for months upon months to use my left hand. Tried out for basketball with Coach James and Coach Brockman with the cast and left hand. So it absolutely made me a better athlete. So to all the young Topeka West athletes, I'd say don't miss the small blessings that come sometimes with some pain and hardship. In the long run, it will make you a better person and a better athlete, and you have more tenacity to get through difficult times. Frank Walton created a family-oriented program. That's why we're here. This is about Frank. We were brothers, we believed in each other, and we loved to play football. I recall the Hayden game in junior year, and as he said, I was second team, and Sykes is running around, running the offense, and then all of a sudden I'm in. But we were struggling. The offense was not moving. I get out in the huddle. I may have said some unkind things to our guys in the huddle, and Kerner, Sanders, Bundy, boom, boom, boom. And they're just, they're beating on me like they're little brothers. And Coach's like, what the heck is going on out there? Don't worry about it. We voted right along, we won the game, and it was just fine because we believed in each other. But in order to have, success, I think, as an athlete, whether it's high school, junior high, college, you always need somebody to sponsor you. And we were sponsored by, as you can see in this crowd, we've got Randy Walker, Rome Mitchell, we got Frank Walton, Goring, every coach, Ostrich, Coach James. You guys are still here. You're still sponsoring all of us, so that's why we were successful. I just want to thank you all for all your sacrifice and what you did for us. I want to throw out some names. The football coaches were Frank Walton, Ron Stoll. I still remember Coach Stoll in the first soap scrimmage when I had my bell rung and he goes, "What's my name? What's my name?" "Hell, I'm sophomore. I don't know." I couldn't tell you. He's got a concussion. Get him off. I'm like, "Well, I just didn't know." We had Rob Dennison, Brady Pryor. Brady couldn't be here tonight, but Brady was just finishing his athletic career at Washington University. He was my quarterback coach with Coach Walton. Couldn't ask for a better quarterback coach. Brady probably was the best veer quarterback that we've ever had at Topeka West. And so he, for 3 years, transferred that knowledge to me, and I couldn't be more thankful. Billy Pryor, Jim Fromfelter, and then last but not least, we had this guy named Bob Gonzalez, double live guns. So we were blessed to have a group of coaches. Now, as Chuck said, we kind of rolled into our senior season, and that's why we're here. Topeka West football that year led the city in offense and defense each week for 9 weeks. We were a team. 3 of the top 10 in total offense were on our team. 2 of the top rushers in the top 4 in the city were on our team. Holt, Rosa Single. But what Chuck failed to mention was the line. And you all know where it happens. It's the line makes it happen. Chuck Sanders went on to K-State. Bundy on the KU. We had Kerner, who was just, or Center, he was just mean as a snake. The wrestler, he was tough. Gomel and Pervin. And so we had a great team. Started off 4-0, we're rolling. But that summer before, we made all the summer workouts. We went to K-State camp, we went to football camps, we lifted weights. We did the extra things, and I think that's why we as a team bonded in that senior year. And then Chuck mentions we have the fire. Why somebody wanted to smoke a cigarette in the boys' football locker room, I'll never figure that out. But we didn't get to practice that week. We did lose to Manhattan. Junktown, Junction City, sorry about that. You just never hear things happen. Weird things happen in Junction City, so we just lost that game. But it was great to come back and play the downtown team, and as Chuck said, win that game. Chuck mentioned Lawrence, and Lawrence was good, really good. They were rolling. They had a good football team. We lost 13-10, but if the coach will remember, we had 2 made field goals that were waived out by penalties. Still don't know why that's 6 points just wiped off the board. I still to this day don't know why. The last thing was Jan Denby ran a punt return back. I'm on the sideline watching. That kid came out of bounds 3 feet. Our guys just stopped and walked up. He was up, he was out of bounds. He reverses and goes. So there's another 13-point swing there. But what you don't know is every year we get together, and I said, if I would have just made 4 correct reads, Holt walks in, Rosensiegel walk in, I walk in, we dominated that game. I'm sorry, that's the truth. But if you ask those guys, they'll say, I don't know what you're talking about, Tony. I did this, I did that, but we all took responsibility for what we did and didn't do. We were a good group and a good team. And Chuck, I'll forever love playing football with you. Well, we were successful because the coaching staff believed in us. We believed in the coaches. We believed in each other. And our team was a team of 45, 100. Not one person on that team was more important than the other. Although, as Chuck said, we had the best running back in the city. It was just an absolute great experience. I want to hit basketball a little bit because I didn't have a whole lot of time with Coach Ostrich. He came in my senior year. He was a great basketball coach. Sorry, Coach, we were a little short on talent, we were short on height. And later years you did get some taller, more talented guys to play for you. Coach James and Coach Brockman, sophomore year basketball, never forget it. We had more fun and more experiences, and you guys were absolutely great to us, and thank you for coming tonight. I wanted to just say just a short word. I thank my parents and all the parents from the Topeka West athletes who are always there for us. The parents, teachers, administrators, Coach Walton, Big Mama for always including us for spaghetti. We always felt welcome at your house, but someone asked me one time, what do you remember the most about your time at playing sports at Topeka West? I said, you know what, I remember the band. I remember the performers. I remember the cheerleaders, the drill team, the effort that they put forth, and the talent that they had, and that always stuck with me. I want to say thanks to my wife and 2 kids for coming tonight. I'm blessed to have you, and to my niece Misty, Angie's daughter, for coming. You mean the world to me. But the most important thing I want to do is thank Coach Walton for supporting me, believing in me, and always being a great friend and a confidant. And you're the reason that I'm here tonight. So thank you.
One of my biggest failures as a track coach was that I never got Tony out for track. I tried. I remember that Coach Walton doesn't know this, but he was on my cross-country list. And I gave him cross-country information. I knew it was a long shot. I knew he was a football player, so that took care of that. Our next inductee is 1986 graduate Jeff Benson. Despite being unable to play tennis during his junior year because of a knee injury, he managed to become state singles champion his senior year. After his high school career, he went on to have an illustrious career at Iowa State and went on to play professionally. He will be introduced by another Hall of Famer, Coach Corey Wilson.
Before I get started, I wanted to congratulate Bill Allen's family.
Mr. Allen was a friend of my dad's back in the days. I remember him coming to my house when I was a kid, sitting in my living room talking with my dad. And I'm sure there wasn't a truth told in the whole conversation. But one thing I also wanted to mention is about him. I had a friend that was a marvelous singer, an excellent guy. He weighed about 380 pounds. And in 1969 and 70, imagine going to Topeka West High School and having to be in PE with those other guys and knowing that he was going to have to run the laps. He would dread it. But Coach Allen was always really, really subtle with him and never put him in a bad situation. And I remember years we talk about his favorite teachers at Topeka West, and Coach Allen was, it meant a lot to him to not be put in a bad situation like that. So that's just another Bill Allen story. I also have to say thank you to Ro Mitchell and Connie Skinner for hiring me, or I wouldn't have these memories I'm getting tonight. Miranda Walker for keeping me from getting fired. Probably a great guidance person. You know, you don't do everything right. And, so this is a neat night for me to be here with these people and all the coaches too. I go to these I-70 League dinners. And Joe was another mentor for me. And you go to these I-70 League meetings and you look at all the coaches that were on our staff, and you just go, man, this is great. This is just fun. And, you know, because you'd walk in there and you'd see the disarray in some of the other schools, but we seem to be all together. So, anyway, I'm here to talk about Jeff Benson. And I could talk about Jeff Benson all night long, but I won't, because I know that I want Jeff to do most of the talking. I first and I call him Benny. I first met Benny when he was probably 8 years old. And I was giving tennis lessons at what was then called Wood Valley Racket Club. And up bounded this little bitty left-handed boy who seemed to be only about half again as big as his racket. But what he lacked in size, he more than made up for with personality and energy. Little did I know that this was the beginning of a friendship that would last to this very day, and I'm sure will go on until I don't. So, even at age 8, you could tell that Benny was going to be special. He just had that spring in his step and that desire to please people. He always had that air of mischief and confidence that I think all athletes who must perform by themselves have. Benny was never arrogant, and he flat out loved being around people, and he was always so loyal. Those are 3 strengths that I believe have served him well into this adult life. So from the beginning, I loved that little fireball that joined my lessons that day. It wasn't long after that that I became the tennis coach here at Topeka West, and Benny showed up as a freshman in 1983. He'd gotten a little bigger physically, but his game had gotten a lot bigger. So much so that I placed him in the #1 singles slot where he shined all year long, winning city league and regional titles. He was almost unstoppable. In fact, the only thing that stopped him that year was me. I did a horrible job of getting him seated in the state draw, and he went down in the quarterfinals at least 1 round sooner than he should have. I wasn't surprised to find out that Benny was going to transfer after that loss. But he didn't just transfer from Topeka West. In fact, he'd earned an invitation over the summer to play at the prestigious John Newcomb Academy in Texas. It's an all-encompassing thing, tennis, school, everything. Obviously geared to train a potential professional of tomorrow. Who could blame him for not passing that up? Well, Benny had a super year in Texas and was steadily climbing the ranking ladder nationally when tragedy struck. He blew out his ACL on a routine movement on the court, and Jeff would return to Kansas for treatment and come back to Topeka West for school. He got involved with our tennis program that spring by becoming our manager. He would work out and rehab during our practices, and it wasn't long before players on the team were starting to mimic some of his physical therapy drills. I found them to be particularly valuable for us in doubles, and I don't think that it was a fluke that we won 7 state double titles in a row following Jeff's time with us.
I've always credited Jeff with being the catalyst for that run. Jeff would work throughout the summer of his junior year and was preparing to go back to Newcomb's camp. I just assumed he would. I mean, it was his dream. A chance discussion with my dad changed all that. My dad was one night asked me if I'd asked Jeff if he was interested in staying at Topeka West. I said, well, that's a dumb question. Why should I? It's his life. He needs to be where he wants to be. My dad said, well, how do you know that isn't at Topeka West? So I reluctantly called Jeff, knowing that I'd hear him say something like, are you kidding? Instead, Jeff said, Coach, I didn't think you guys wanted me on the team. I was just going back to give it a go in Texas. I think his mom and dad were both thrilled that Jeff was staying home and coming back with us at Topeka West. Jeff's senior season was a blur, primarily because he was a blur. I don't think I've ever seen a player take a season and just buzzsaw through people like Jeff did. In the finals of the state tournament, he was untouchable. He did everything fundamentally right for his body type. He was fearless and he was flawless. It was a fitting conclusion for a youngster who only wanted to please folks, who cares deeply about people and their feelings, and who just gives everything he has to give on the court. In those days, Prince Rackets would select kids from across the nation to be on their All-American tennis team. Benny was chosen to that squad, and deservedly so. Benny would go on to play college tennis at his beloved Iowa State, where he was captain of the team. He's continued his love for the game by teaching the game itself and adapting to its changes, both as a sport and as a business. He's one of the most beloved tennis teaching professionals in the Midwest and is known throughout the United States. Benny was also honored a few years back by the Topeka Tennis Association as a member of the Topeka Tennis Hall of Fame. But more than that, more than all these accolades, Benny is a dedicated father and a dedicated son to his family. I'm blessed to call him a former player, a former state champion for our school, and a joyful memory from my youthful coaching days that will stay with me forever. More than that, I'm blessed to call Benny my friend and a young brother who I love. You know, when I think about it for a while, I can still see that excited little boy bounding along those wooden sidewalks toward the tennis courts at Wood Valley all these years ago. But for now, I'll take pride in introducing him as a member of the Topeka West Athletic Hall of Fame. Jeff?
Let me know if I need to use a step stool. I'm not super tall for some reason. Let's see here. Corey, it's going to be tough getting through this. Thanks to you. First of all, thank you so much to the Topeka West Hall of Fame Selection Committee. This is truly an honor, and I'm humbled by this. This is very special. You know, it's great to have family here with me. My Aunt Carolyn's here, my mom and dad. It's sadly my boys, Jack and Jared, aren't able to be here. They are out in the real world. They're off my payroll, which is great. I did get a call just before the ceremony from my son Jack. He calls at least 3 times a day. He's great, but he happened to be a communications major at Iowa State, and I said, Jack, do you have any advice for me? And he goes, yeah, don't screw up. So thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. That's awfully kind. You know, I think this is really cool that I can stand up here and publicly thank the people who I feel are responsible for this award that I'm getting tonight. My mom. We're gonna do one of those. My mom, my dad, Coach. They made a huge impact on me, and obviously, you know, I'm very blessed. Obviously, it goes without saying I wouldn't be as successful in the sport that I love without my mom and dad. Dad, you were great. You traveled to all the matches. You would have actually played tennis with me a few times. But back in the day, you have we live out by Lake Javaros. We used the Shawnee Heights courts back in the day. And father would have his picture of Bloody, this is in the mid-70s, picture of Bloody Marys. That helped. To hit with me, to play with me, to deal with me back then when I was that young, he had to have the Bloody Marys. It was very important. It had to be done. He actually, back then, smoking was kind of still acceptable. He had a cigarette dangling out of your mouth while playing. And I don't know how you hit the tennis ball with the Bloody Marys and the cigarette. But anyway, it was awfully fun. Those are great memories. But you, seriously, my father still gets up every morning, opens up the store, works his tail off. And I'm so incredibly proud of my father. I think I got a little bit of his work ethic in the job I've done later on in life, and I'm blessed. Next up, Mom. Mom, you went to every tennis practice, private lesson, group lesson, not because you were one of those helicopter parents. It wasn't that at all. You were honestly afraid I was going to get beat up by these kids. I was a smart aleck back in the day, but kind of was. But what you taught me was heart and dedication. I mean, you made it known that you wanted some heart on the tennis court. You wanted me to work, and it was all about that. I have a great story about with my mom, if you indulge me here. This was just about a month after I graduated from Topeka West. I was just signed with Iowa State, but we were going to play the national circuit, playing in a match in San Francisco, and I'm talking to a buddy of mine, and we look at the straw, we're looking at the straw, I go, who's this guy? And he goes, well, Benny, I think he's really good. I think he's, I go, look at him, he's like 3 inches shorter than me, I'm really short, piece of cake. Well, fine, we go out, we played a match. There's a lot of people watching the match for some reason. I had no clue, but I played lackluster. I didn't play real well. Ended up losing the match 6-3, 6-3. Came off the court. Mom wasn't real pleased with my effort. Didn't play real well. And so anyway, I always kind of remember that. So 5 years later, I'm hypothetically having a few adult pops with some buddies at Iowa State. And I'm watching TV, and I'm going to call her. I'm calling my mom. Call her. Don't do it, Benson. Don't you call her. I'll call her. Gotta call her. Please don't call your mother. Because I had a few pops at me. I'm not ashamed to say it. And finally, they shake hands, get into the match, and call my mom. I go, Mom, that's all I got out. And my mom went, I know, I shouldn't have yelled at you back then in 1986. And, I felt so bad that the guy I played was Pete Sampras. And, yeah, whoops. I told that story a lot. He was 3 years younger than me, 15. Every time my buddies told the story, he was like, he's younger and younger. He was like 12. It's nuts. But, Mom, I owe most of my tennis prowess to you. Your dedication. I mean it. You've just been the world of me. So thank you for that. All right. Next up, Coach Wilson, Corey. I don't know if you'll know this or not, Corey, but I think you secretly are a world-class sprinter. You are. You're faster than anybody I've ever met. Here's why. I was getting a tennis lesson with Corey back in Wood Valley. Oh yeah, this is probably the top 5 funniest story I think I've ever, in tennis I've ever had. So I'm hitting the ball back and forth with Corey, and all of a sudden I see this kid behind Corey, this fence with is that a BB gun? Sure enough, he gets his BB gun, and he shoots Corey. And so as I get older with my stories, I kind of embellish. I always said, I thought it was your, excuse my language, your ass got shot. But no, it wasn't. It was your chest. It's funnier with the butt story, so I'm gonna say that. But chest wasn't good either, probably knocked the wind out of you, but got shot. I've never seen anybody run so fast after a kid. He takes off and like Corey zooms. I swear you're like Michael Johnson sprinting after this guy, and you catch him. And I'm on the ground laughing hysterically. I think it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, that's a funny story about Corey. But shortly after that, maybe a few years later, I joined Corey as a freshman at Topeka West. I was just barely over 5 feet tall, incredibly short. And in fact, Coach Walton, that year, took your speech class. And I was scared to death taking that class. And you were, by the way, an amazing teacher. You made it bearable. And I actually went on and I was safe to be a speech major. Can't believe it. But you were incredibly kind. I'll always hold that near my heart. Thank you for that, by the way. I've got ADD, so sometimes I'll ramble a little bit, so excuse me. But thank you for that. But Corey did an amazing job of coaching me back then. I had some temperament issues. I grew up during John McEnroe, and I blame John McEnroe for all of that. But it's a lot different now. But my emotions just were crazy. You knew when to be nice to me, kind of coddle me, and to get after me. Mostly you were very kind. And I think that freshman year, I grew a lot. Not height-wise for sure, but as a tennis player. You made me believe that I could beat the upperclassmen, anybody. And that's the key to sports. Is when you go out, especially a one-on-one sport, if you have any doubt, any self-doubt, you've lost. And I didn't have it for the most part, except when the first round in Spain, when I played someone 6'8", and okay, he was a lot taller than me. He was strong. And I don't blame you, by the way, for the seeding at all for my freshman year of high school. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Even then, I knew you were a special coach. Very much so. Yes, my sophomore and junior year, I chose to go to Texas to this tennis academy. I needed to believe that I could compete against the best. I needed to feel that. And I knew that's where I thought, I needed to be going towards that, needed to head towards there. And I got my butt kicked right off the bat my sophomore year against these kids. And later on, I kept chipping away. And I finally felt like I was there. And I was beating a lot of these kids. And it's all belief. So I went home my sophomore year for the summer. And actually, I've had 2 blown knees. It was in June, just before the summer season. That's where you make hay and you play a lot of tournaments. I tore my left knee playing in a practice match. And I tried to play on it for a couple more matches and couldn't do it. So I partially tore my ACL in my left knee, rehabbed it, went back to Newcomb's in September for the season, for school. I worked hard, rehabbed it, playing in January. I tore my right knee at Newcomb's. So I have 2 blown knees. I've had 2 blown knees. And my parents drove all the way from Topeka to New Braunfels, Texas. I think you got a call in a movie theater. You were seeing a movie, and somehow they gave you a buzz. And they picked me up. Off we went back to Topeka West, or to Topeka, and had surgery pretty quick. And off I was at Topeka West my junior year. And Corey, you were so welcoming to me once I was rehabbing and really making me feel like I was part of the team that junior year. Even though I wasn't playing on a team, you let me hang out with the team. And it felt awesome. It felt great. And I developed some friendships there that's very special to me. So yes, Corey and I talked. It was so amazing that I was able to, so blessed I was able to stay that senior year. Best decision of my life, staying that senior year in 1986. Loved it here at Topeka West. Friendships I made, but God, I was so on fire that year, and that was because of you, Corey. You knew which buttons to push that senior year. God, I got ticked. You knew when to tick me off. I was going to say something else, but you knew when to tick me off. You knew when to back off. You knew when I needed to kick it in the butt. It was, you were the perfect coach for me. It was something else. And it cut to, I think I won every match, and cut to the state finals. There's 4 matches that day. And first 2 were pretty easy. Third match, I wasn't really good. I was down 5-3 in the first set, and I didn't lose a set that year, and I was pretty worried. And I think I was thinking ahead. I ended up winning that match, and after that match, Corey brought me into the van. I probably had only like an hour to get ready for the next match. And I'm so sick, I left this at home. I have it hanging in my office wall. And he wrote this out for me. 3 things. First thing, it's kind of strategic. It said, use angles, don't get caught up in it. Second thing, he said, don't take any crap. Third thing, sell yourself to the state title. And he wrote big letters, 26-0. And I swear, to this day, I walked on court. I don't know if you've ever, there's an expression, you're playing in a zone. You're playing like in the moment. I can't tell you what I was thinking. You don't want to think when you play. You want to react. It was the perfect match. The kid I beat went on to play at Kansas. Top 3. He was a very, very good tennis player. And I think I lost him 2 months later. But you got me so charged up to play. You got me in that zone. To me, that's a Hall of Fame coach. Nobody better. Or none. Nobody better. He was that good. I've been in the tennis business for 33 years now. I've coached a lot of people. I've coached I've met a lot of high school coaches. There's no one better. There's been no one better. Corey means the world to me, and to a lot of people. Very, very blessed to have that. And there's so many people. I'm friends with you on Facebook. All these former students, former players, sing his praises. And there's a good reason for it. He's something else. So again, I'm very blessed to be one of his students. Again, everybody, thank you so much for this honor. It means the world. And again, thank you again, Coach. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
I guess the lesson there for all of us, don't give up on the smart Alex. Our next inductee is 2002 graduate, Katie Freund, Neiman. She was a top 11 finisher in 3 years of state competition in golf. I believe she will be the only girls golf Hall of Fame member, so far at least. She will be introduced by Topeka West Golf Coach and Athletic Director Rich Mariani.
It truly is an honor to be up here tonight to introduce Katie Freund into the Topeka West Sports Hall of Fame. Katie said, I really don't deserve this. And I said, yeah, you do. Because back when we started, and she was part of the initial girls golf team, and Misty Carroll said it earlier, we need to have more women in sports. And golf we started in 1998, and Katie was one of my first young ladies that we got started that year. And to my blessing, I had Katie and another girl, Alicia Enstrom, that were just really, really good kids and tremendous golfers. And for those two, all I had to do was drive the van to get them to the right spot. I really didn't do a whole lot. They already had a whole lot of support from her parents, from her grandparents. They were there at every event and very supportive. When she started, we were, the state of Kansas had girls golf, both 5 and 6A were combined. So when she competed, she was not competing just against 5A girls, she was competing against Shawnee Mission schools. And we're just a little old 5A school now. We've dropped in class in 1998. In 1999, we drove down to Dodge City, America. It was 70 degrees when we went down there. We played a practice round. The next morning, it was 30 degrees, and we had to wait out a frost delay. And I've never been so cold in my life. But Katie went out and played, and like she played every time with determination. Fairways, greens, and she did it. That was our goal. Fairways, greens, and keep the putts down. She was a tremendous golfer, and I told her, I said, because you're competing against 6A kids, if you were just in 5A by yourself, I think one year I think her sophomore year she would have finished 3rd. Her junior year she would have been the state champion if we had just had 5A. And then her senior year, I think she would have been 4th. But she had a tremendous career. The worst she ever finished in a golf tournament was her senior year at state, and that was 11th. She was always in the top 10. We always had, and I always used to tease the kids, I'm sorry, we have to wait. Katie's got to get a medal. So we'll wait and do all that. And like I said, coaches, great coaches around. Mike Goring, Frank Walton, Joe Schrock, Corey Wilson. It's the kids. It's always the kids. They're the ones that put the work in. They're the ones that are dedicated to doing the sport that we love. And we try and get them to love that sport. And Katie, she was that. She loved to play golf. And I still think that's part of her upbringing. Her parents loved to come watch her play. Her grandparents, God bless them, they were always there to support her. And I can't thank her enough and it had to be a blessing for us to start girls golf, because I got to spend 4 wonderful years with a wonderful girl, Katie Freund. She was also dynamic in the classroom. She was a tremendous student, and I think a lot of our Hall of Famers, when they not only are good athletes and dedicated athletes, they're also dedicated in the classroom. And I can't impress upon that to our students now that we've always had student athletes here at Topeka West, and I continue to believe in that. I present to you tonight Topeka West Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Miss Katie Freund.
Good evening. I would like to thank the nominating committee and Coach Mariani for their consideration for me for the Topeka West High School Hall of Fame. I am truly, truly honored to be standing among such distinguished alumni and staff. Words cannot express my gratitude. Much like those people expressed before me, what I'm most thankful for this evening is the opportunity to recognize those individuals without whom I would not be standing here. My parents, Jay and Emcee Freund, my late grandparents, Tom and Joyce Gartner, and our extended family, including Tom and Cleo Murphy, were staunch supporters of me who believed in me even when I struggled to believe in myself. They tirelessly chauffeured me to and from junior golf practices, tournaments, and later attended as coach at countless high school tournaments.
Not to mention green fees and golf clubs and trips. Suffice to say, I can never repay them for all the sacrifices they made. I would also like to thank Coach Mariani for his guidance and patience through my Topeka West years. Coach, you are giving the kids props, but I think we speak for all the athletes here and those that have gone before us that we would be lost without our good coaches. Blessed with a daughter myself, I am only now beginning to understand the joys of guiding and teaching a strong-willed woman. I can only imagine how fun and occasionally challenging it was to coach a whole team of us. So Coach was incredibly patient and supportive and helped shape me into the best golfer that I could be, along with my instructor, Shawnee Country Club, Scott Walter. I would be remiss standing in front of all of you if I didn't take a moment to also thank the stellar faculty at Topeka West High. There are so many teachers here who enriched my life and helped set me up for success at college and in the years beyond. Too many to name, quite frankly. Though I had a passion for English, history, and social studies, I wound up in healthcare as a pharmacist. I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to survive those classes or the electives I took in my favorite subjects were it not for the quality faculty here preparing me for it all. And that would include Mr. Mariani and dreaded calculus. I remember the first team meeting we had in Coach Mariani's room, freshman year. I recognized Alicia and Stern right away, fellow freshman, but we had done many junior golf events together. But every other face was unfamiliar, at least initially. They quickly became as familiar as family. High school is awkward for all of us, some more than others, and I cannot begin to tell you how comforting it was to me to have a place and a purpose and some friendly faces on campus that first year. As a team, we learned to support one another, root for and encourage one another, celebrate new personal bests, and provide comfort when the game, or even just our day, didn't go as we had planned. I also remember our first team practice, which was at the range at the sports center. One of our golfers, who was incredibly new to golf, accidentally mishit a ball that went underneath all of us, skidding across all the adjacent practice mats. So from those very humble beginnings, Coach led us bravely onward, crisscrossing eastern Kansas in the school van for tournaments, sharing stories, experiences, and varied music tastes, from Aaliyah's Are You That Somebody to Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. Speaking of road trips, poor Coach, that first state tournament that we qualified for was a beautiful course, Mariah Hills in Dodge City, Kansas, the great metropolis. Sadly, I was the only one to qualify that year, but my parents encouraged me to ride with Coach so we could talk shop, and I'm sure that we did. But I also recall being a moody little high school girl with my headphones in and my disc band playing Madonna and Metallica. And for most of a good chunk of that trip, so kudos again to Coach for knowing when to let a girl have her quiet time. For those many years on the course, from those many years on the course and the 4 years I attended Topeka West, I took many life lessons. The seeds of patience, tenacity, teamwork, leadership, enjoyment of the outdoors, and countless other virtues were all planted during my golf career. Unfortunately for Coach and my family, I can't claim that all of those virtues were in constant practice during my years at Topeka West. Much like Mr. Benson echoed, I had some John McEnroe moments too. So some of those were definitely a work in progress. However, I'm happy to report that those seeds all took firm root eventually and brought me to the happy path I currently find myself on. Looking back, it would be easy to look at my golf career in high school years and think about some missed opportunities or things I wish I could do better. Still, I come to you tonight a well of gratitude. I'm thankful for it all, for it got me here, and truly I am beyond blessed. Thank you again to everyone that made this happen, and thank you again for committing.
After hearing that enthusiastic presentation, is there any wonder that she became as successful as she did? Our next inductee is 2003 graduate Daniel Hefflin. Daniel had a very productive career as a three-sport athlete who accumulated 10 varsity letters. In large measure because of his contributions. Teams he played on were third in state basketball, second in state football, and championship in state baseball. He will be introduced by Corey Wilson.
Well, I think it says in the program, Chad Ashball. And Chad, unfortunately, was unable to make it tonight because his new job takes him, he's an athletic director at Concordia High School, and they have their homecoming bonfire and everything tonight. So Daniel did what he could. He tried to find somebody that looked just like Chad. I get confused for him periodically, so anyway, I'm truly honored to actually be here to speak on behalf of Daniel. And just kind of as a former teacher and coach here, during my time here, I taught English, and I was involved in the video production and television lab, which is really how Daniel and I know one another initially. As a result of that, I did a lot of research on school activities here, various video projects and school history and the like, and it's always amazing to me when we have these experiences here at Topeka West. I mean, the school's matchless in so many ways with respect to the careers that we've seen our graduates take on all over the United States and even the world. Men of industry, political leaders, actors, Broadway performers, you name it. And it's neat that we have a day for athletic history too. I thank Joe for that. This is Joe's dream and his vision, and I think it's something that we all look forward to and enjoy. And Dan Hefflin is a young man who, in his and as I talk with him, in his humble opinion, will tell you that he doesn't really think he belongs in this Hall of Fame of sorts. Just as he would tell you as a player that he wasn't the star, he wasn't the reason that Topeka West shined athletically. And I get that, Daniel. I'm a research guy, though, as I mentioned, and so I'm here to both present you, but also perhaps to prove to you that you do indeed belong in this Hall of Fame. Daniel played a role on every single team he participated in at this school. Shoot, he played a role on every single day of school he attended here at Topeka West. Sometimes those roles don't stick out because of the nature of the person playing it. For Daniel, that's indeed true. Okay, now this is the part of my presentation where I could say all the standard things, you know, that he's humble, that he's in the thick of the battle, that he's glue that stabilizes everyone, that he leads with his actions, but I'm not going to say that. Besides, I was there, I witnessed it, I saw it. You wanted to see it sometime, ask him. He's probably got a tape somewhere, but it's all there. I wanted to use my time wisely here, so consider this about Daniel Hefflin, a guy who doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame here. He was an all-year multi-sport athlete, something that Joe Schrag wanted to inspire in the very development of this Hall of Fame. In the first place, no time off ever for Daniel. He probably wore more purple and white outfits than any student during his time here. He earned 10 varsity letters, 4 in football, 4 in baseball, and 2 in basketball. That's astounding in any sports career. In 2003, I don't want to get lost here. In 2003, he was named to the first team All-State baseball team. In addition to that, he was first team All-City in baseball that year. Are you listening, Daniel? That gets you in here too. I could stop right here and that'd be more than enough to be in this Hall of Fame, but let's add some glue to this inductee's achievements. Think about these statistics compiled by your good friend and voice of the Kansas Jayhawks, Brian Haney. I only wish I had fraction his professional delivery, or at least that Topeka West Charger broadcasting jacket that he wore here one time, but I'll have to make do. As Brian would say, try these on. Try these on. During the 2002-2003 athletic seasons, the Charger men's major sports teams combined had perhaps their most successful year ever in Topeka West school history. Football team finished second in the state, basketball team finished third in the state, and the baseball team were crowned state champions. All 3 of those teams had one common ingredient: Daniel Hefflin. In football, he was a starting quarterback. On the basketball team, he was a starting guard forward, and he was a starting first baseman on the baseball team. So the statistical evidence is in, Daniel. You are hands down fit for this Hall of Fame. But there's more. In the week or so since you contacted me about this privilege of getting to introduce you tonight, I reached out to some of your coaches and teammates from years past, the guys who knew you and shared the field and the court and the diamond with you. Current Highland Park head basketball coach Michael Williams shared the basketball court and baseball field with you. He remembers you. Oh, he says this, that you were the first kid in Scabba ball that he ever saw hit it out of the park, completely out of the park, and he says he can prove it because that ball you hit out was right over his head. He remembers that even as a youngster on that team, you were a team leader. He never knew you to just show up for a practice, much less a game. He valued your dedication, your desire, your friendship, and brotherhood back then, and that bond continues to this day, as you well know. In fact, he's here tonight. He said, I'm not missing my guy getting inducted. I'm super proud of Heavy. I hope he will do one of his dances when he gets up. Me too. Executive Director at Communities and Schools in Chatham County, North Carolina, and Charger Hall of Famer and fellow teammate Ty Cowden says that Daniel was a leader off and on the field and an even better friend. He could win any award out there, including the Pretty Boy Award, for having the coolest gear and the shiniest shoes. He also wanted to say, Daniel, that you still owe him a TV. He said you'd know what that meant. He finished by saying that he loves you like a brother, and he's so happy that you're receiving this well-deserved award. Former head football coach Warren Sykes remembers you as a guy who was completely in charge no matter what the situation, a person who was very knowledgeable in virtually every game situation you found yourself in. If it meant you had to take over, you'd do it. If it meant you had to play a role to accentuate the team in another way, you'd do it. And more than that, you'd excel at it because with you, the team always came first. Both Coach Sykes and his wife Tracy value your friendship and brotherhood to this day, and they send you their love and their congratulations. Current Charger head football coach Ryan Kelly started at safety as a freshman on that historic football team you quarterbacked, and he remembers how you and all the seniors accepted him at a time when his position was a bit tender due to an issue that you guys probably remember. He specifically points to you as being the ringleader and spearheading that acceptance. It's something he has never forgotten. He credits you with showing him what it takes to be a leader. Daniel, former Charger head basketball coach, Chad Eschbach, also sends his congratulations. He said this about you: Daniel's voice and team first perspective was infectious to all of us that was around him. He made players feel important regardless of their role on the team through his willingness to be their friend, their mentor, and their motivator. His leadership helped to pave the way for future teams to achieve great success on the court through remembering and following his example. When I think of a winner, I think of Daniel. I'm so happy for Daniel to be inducted into the Topeka West Hall of Fame, and I'm blessed to have had the opportunity not only to coach him, but to consider him a friend. And I can't leave out the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks and fellow Charger Hall of Famer Brian Haney, who talked about the Daniel Hefflin of today. He's a rising star in college athletics fundraising, first at Texas Tech and now at Kansas University. Seeing his charisma, his natural leadership, and tremendous work ethic in this realm, it's easy to understand how he was such a multi-sport superstar for the Chargers. KU's lucky to have him. He makes us all proud to be associated with him every day. He also added that he was sure that Maggie was thrilled for you as well. He said you'd understand that. Daniel, these accolades came from some of the top coaches and athletes in Topeka West Charger history, and they know a Hall of Famer when they see one. And so Daniel, there's no need for me to dress you up in puffery. I use that word for you. You are the real deal. Simply put, you were the glue that held the pieces together for so many when you weren't making the plays for yourself. You are the epitome of a Hall of Famer, and it's my deep honor to get to present you to the Topeka West Athletic Hall of Fame game.
Mr. Wilson, thank you very much. I really sincerely appreciate all those kind words, and calling my former teammates and coaches really took me down memory lane. I'd like to begin tonight by first thanking God, because without this, without him, none of this is possible. He truly did bless me with some abilities. He really did. After that, I'd like to thank my family sitting down in front here. I'll start with my mom. She was at every game. She was there cheering, never trying to instruct, but there cheering and always supported to this day. My brothers, I was the youngest, and always looked up to them. I credit them for me being the athlete that I was, because if it wasn't for them, then I always try to keep up with them. You're the baby looking up, and you're trying to live up to their expectations, and they pushed me. They were never easy on me at all, and some of the lessons that I've learned through them, I carry to this day. I'd like to thank the committee, first of all, and foremost, for this distinguished honor. This is amazing. I'd like to congratulate the other inductees as well. You should be very proud of this, but I'd like to start a little bit with the teachers and the coaches. You guys are amazing, and the life lessons you taught some of us still stick with us to this day. And I don't think educators get enough credit this day for the work that they do, the hours they put in, for what they truly embark in. And some of the lessons I've learned today, they'll live with me for the rest of my life because of Topeka West High School. And that's just not in athletics, that was in the classroom as well. Some of the coaches that I would like to mention, and Mr. Wilson, you did a fantastic job, but Coach Sykes, Coach Cowden. Coach Cowden's not here, but he's in the Hall of Fame. Coach Losey, Coach Perry, Coach Eschball, Dixon, Mariani, especially sophomore year. Might be the only coach that told me to shoot, by the way. Might be the only basketball coach who told me to shoot. No, Coach Ware, Coach Ostrich. Then I'd also like to thank Miss Swati and Miss Benson, who's my guidance counselor. Fantastic people. They really cared. This place is special because you care about the student first. You care about the person first. And I take a lot of those life lessons that I learned here at Topeka West High School. My teammates. My teammates that start off as teammates, but are my brothers. I love you guys. I love you guys. The ones that are here tonight, I love you guys. I played all team sports. I love the fact of the team. I love thinking about working together to achieve a common goal. And man, we are some knuckleheads. We are some knuckleheads, but we love to compete. We love to win. And we are a determined group. We're a determined group. Two of the teams I was fortunate to be a part of are already in this Hall of Fame. And when I think of my class, when I think of my boys, when I think of my brothers, I think about the word determination. Some of you guys were around our sophomore year, and I'm just going to read a couple numbers going off Mr. Haney's stats, but our sophomore year in football, we were 1-8. Basketball, we were 1-20. Baseball, 5-16. Sophomore year. We stuck together, we got in the weight room. We didn't shy away from competition, we stepped right into competition. We knew that we were building something special. 2 years later, our senior year, 10-3 in football, lost the state championship game. A game I still think about. My goal was always to walk into that Charger Dome and to hang a banner. I wanted to hang a banner so bad. Lost the state championship game, beat them in every single category but the sport. And sometimes that's all that matters. The very next day, I was at basketball practice. We lost the state championship game on Saturday, probably one of the coldest games I've ever played in. Next day I was at basketball practice, Coach Eschball says, "Heff, you don't have to be here." I said, "I know, Coach, I want to be here. I want to win state title in basketball. Basketball that year, after going 1-20 2 years ago, we were 19-6, third in state. Talk about determination, talk about grit, talk about staying together, loving each other, working through some adversity. Third in state. Sophomore year in baseball, 5-16. We get third in basketball. The next day we start baseball practice. And we knew what we wanted to do. Baseball 23-2. 23-2. It's 5A state champions. And I remember those 2 losses like the back of my hand. But when I think about the life lessons I learned through athletics, I think about one of those 2 losses. And one of those, unfortunately, was to our crosstown rival. But if I remember vividly, we had 5 guys show up late to the game. I'll never forget that. And Coach Cowden, teaching life lessons through sport, benched those guys. We had 5 guys of our 9 out of place, and that game 1 of the doubleheader. Never forget that. We still lost by 1 run. We went on to roll off 15 straight. Lost a close game in Manhattan, and went on to win the state title. Again, life lessons through the game, through sports, and because of this high school right here. I carry with me today. Topeka West is a special place, and I wouldn't change my experience for the world. You know, when you talk about when you talk about teams, you talk about working together, sports is a microcosm of society. I have friends, I have brothers who come from different economic backgrounds, different races, different religions. And what happens when you go out to the workforce? It's the exact same thing. And so, I'm humbled tonight. I'm very humbled. I'm thankful. And I want you guys to know that I am forever grateful for this opportunity, and I'm forever grateful to be a Topeka West Charger. Thank you.
Arguably, Daniel was one of the finest Topeka West athletes who contributed mightily to probably our greatest sports season in the major sports. Our final inductees are the 1967 girls gymnastics team. They concluded an undefeated season with the city championship. There was no girls state gymnastics championship in those days. They will be introduced by Hall of Famer Virgil Gray. Maybe not.
We got some bad news at the beginning of this that due to COVID, some of them could not make it today. A lot of them are out of state. I congratulate the 1967 gymnastics class. You can read their accomplishments in the program, and I accept this honor on behalf of that team. I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. Inductees tomorrow will meet right out here in front of A building. If you're coming to the parade starts at 2:30. If you would meet us at 2:15, we'll meet right out here. And then the football game is at 7 o'clock. You all get in for free. Just tell them you're a Hall of Fame inductee. And we're looking forward to that. Joe, did you have some final remarks?
There are several common denominators among tonight's inductees as well as those who have preceded them. One, they've had tremendous parental support, or if not parental, at least a mentor has been present to give them a sense of direction and encouragement. And two, with very few exceptions, these inductees have been academic stars as well as athletic achievers. And three, the contribution of the inductees to the communities in which they live have been enormous. So honoring them in this Hall of Fame is the least we can do. This concludes our 23rd Annual Topeka West Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The word annual suggests that there will be a 24th if we can get rid of this COVID stuff. Believe me, we have many deserving candidates to be honored, as the selection committee well knows. Please continue your support of Topeka West and its athletic and activities endeavors, and we hope to see you again next year. And don't forget, this coming Sunday, the Alumni Hall of Fame induction and the Owen Henson Distinguished Teacher Awards will be presented right here in this auditorium at 2 p.m., following a reception in the Leadership Study Center at 1 p.m. The inductees will be Matthew Polly, Luke Patrick, Carl McFarland, and Ann Seltzer. The distinguished teachers to be honored are Bob James and Jenny Banks. Also, there will be a plaque presented to the Walton Classic Golf Committee in recognition of their contributions to the West. Thank you for your attendance. Good night and travel safely.
Nicely done, guys. Nicely done. Just fine. Just fine. All